Since the dawn of man, probably, fans of football have always had to deal with an annual natural disaster of sorts, because in exchange for each and every successful season, the football gods demand a massive drought in their honor. A half-year-long famine sweeps over the world so brutally that people get excited for preseason football. They get excited for this. Now, this is no way to live life, clearly, and many have tried to combat this by starting alternate spring football leagues to occupy that vacancy, but those who have tried to go against nature in the past have been smited down by uncompromising force. The fact is, while the market for football is absolutely massive, the hurdle to acquire it is a lot harder to jump over than most ambitious investors seem to realize, and even if you clear it, it requires a ridiculous amount of resources to keep a league afloat, let alone watchable. And yet, here we stand once again, almost as if those bright-eyed billionaires are doomed to keep relearning the same mistake over and over again until the end of time. But hey, maybe this time's gonna be different. At least that's what an older and possibly wiser Vince McMahon is thinking as he moves to revive the XFL. A tale of a disastrous failed enterprise determined to learn from its mistakes of the past and step back into the sports world as a polished and legitimate complement to the NFL. But are they really primed for success, or are they going to fade into the black like nearly every other alternative professional league before them, including their predecessor? Well, today, we're going to find out what lessons need to be learned in order to avoid that fate. But before we begin the autopsies, I want to take a quick second to thank HelloFresh for making this video happen. If you haven't heard of them before, they're America's #1 meal kit, meaning they're a service that simplifies cooking from home all the way down to the easiest it can possibly be. They start from just $5.66 a serving and ship fresh, great-tasting recipes right to your door at your convenience, allowing you to save time without losing out on the flavor that you can really only get from a home-cooked meal. Their service is highly flexible to different schedules and food preferences, and they've made stress-free cooking such a priority that the meal kits they send will allow you to get dinner on the table in 30 or even 20 minutes in a lot of cases. Now, I'm a guy that loves food more than probably just about anyone you've met, and I would put money on that, but I can honestly say that I was blown away by the ease and quality of the recipes that were provided, and it tastes even better than it looks. So if you're looking to enjoy some amazing meals from home, or possibly give an excellent Valentine's Day gift that's already complete with some quality time spent in the kitchen, head down to the link in the description and use my code STE10 to get 10 free meals plus free shipping. Again, that is 10 whole free meals plus free shipping just by using my code STE10 down at the link below. So thank you again to HelloFresh, and without any further ado, let's see if we can find a formula to success in this heap of failed organizations. You ready, Vince?
Shut your mouth and let me answer the question, all right? I'll be happy to answer.
All right, let's go. The new XFL is hardly the first attempt at a startup league during the NFL's unquestioned reign over the US sports world, and there's honestly good reason for that. Many have gone after a chunk of those sweet, sweet viewership numbers, considering football dominates popular culture in America like nothing else. And like we're on some kind of dating game show, there's been no shortage of hopeful suitors over the years either. As one falls, another steps right up to try and right the wrongs of every other past failure. Like the World Football League of the 1970s, attempting to siphon away NFL stars before collapsing after one season. Or the United States Football League of the 80s, which filed an antitrust lawsuit against the NFL and was awarded a single dollar. Or how about a significant number of arena football leagues over the years that have lasted a variety of lengths but have all ceased operation. Then there's the first incarnation of the XFL, which I'm not even going to unpack yet, and of course everybody's favorite, the recently defunct AAF, a sad tale of extreme incompetence and honest-to-God self-sabotage that burn out after less than 2 months. So I can hear you wondering through your screen, just how does the NFL stave off all of these competitors and more? Man, it must be impossible.
No.
There's really 3 main reasons the NFL stands head and shoulders above any other potential football operation. So let's go through them one by one before we assess how the XFL 2.0 is able to stack up against the sea of other football league corpses that have tried and failed before them. First of all, the Shield has the benefit of being untouchable. NFL football is transcendent in American culture, and it's become a lot more than just a game to a significant portion of NFL fans. In some avenues, the dedication shown lines up more evenly with religion than sport, with team affiliation passed down the generations as if they were houses in Game of Thrones or something. When you've got a literal century of history and football lore that give context to everything happening in the game today, you've got an unmatched level of loyalty already established, since most fans have associated with their team since they were just kids. Any new league does not have that, so they've got to invent entirely new ways to fill holes within the market, whether that's by gimmick or fundamental changes to how we've come to know football. We'll get to how the XFL's plan is going to look to do that, but the fact remains, at this point, the only real staying power for a league is straight up being able to stay, at least at first. With instability from alternate leagues as the current standard, there's reason for incredible skepticism from any new fan, no matter what the league is aiming to do, especially right after plenty of people jumped onto the AAF bandwagon just to watch it drive itself into the ocean. So, with knowing there's little margin for error for the XFL to legitimize itself in the pro football landscape, what else needs to occur in order to give them a fighting chance? Well, I might take some heat for this, but it takes a lot of money to start and operate a professional sports league. Oh, no, thank you, you're too kind. For reference on the scale NFL teams are dealing with, in 2018 alone, the Green Bay Packers spent $420 million in operating costs. Those figures aren't available from other NFL teams, so they definitely fluctuate up and down around different franchises, but suffice it to say, you're going to need deep pockets from the get-go to even keep the wheels turning day to day on an entire national league. This is especially true considering when you start from zero and aim to mold a consistent viewer base progressively, you've got to be willing to lose money for a significant amount of time. An amount of time that is not exactly palatable to investors that are about to place an ungodly sum of their money into a venture that is historically batting a perfect zero. Without cash, your infrastructure quickly bottoms out, the league goes on its heels, and all of a sudden, congratulations, you're the AAF. You know, in retrospect, the AAF did a lot of things right, to an extent. They reimagined rules to the game, they had TV deals lined up with major networks, or at least it appeared, the tech innovations were new and exciting, not to mention they weren't going to try and compete directly with the NFL. So where did they go wrong? Well, it was in the funding, of course, and I'm not going to attempt to break down all the specifics, but the abridged version is the founders Charlie Ebersol and Bill Polian faced a difficult financial predicament early into operation, and were forced to sell the farm to someone who turned out to have a completely different vision for the league. That vision was one that was doomed with absolutely zero patience from day one, and things crumbled pretty rapidly after that. It's really a masterclass in clashing priorities, and in the end, money either talks or it silences. So, while I and many other fans enjoyed the product the AAF was putting out on the field, RIP League Champion Apollos, it's pretty clear that a war chest and a half minimum is required to keep yourself from drowning in overhead costs. But the new XFL claims to have just that, with founder Vince McMahon stating he's willing to invest $500 million into the league's first 3 seasons, a figure that is 5 times larger than his original investment back in 2001. So, assuming that position holds, there should at least be a guarantee of stability for the league to have its shot at football's wide market. However, the formula for the NFL's invincibility against alternate leagues is deeper than just Rodgers' overflowing pockets and Drew Brees' status as a religious figure. More than anything, it's the fact that it is impossible for a startup to put a better product on the field than what the NFL already brings to the table, with the best athletes, coaches, and training that the sport has to offer. A case study for what happens when you forget that fact can be found in the previous version of the XFL, a beautiful train wreck that is equally hilarious as it is dumbfounding as to why they thought they could pull this off. Since Vince McMahon brought the WWF to a worldwide audience by ramping up storylines and characters into a spectacle beyond just sports, he took that vision to the XFL and paired it with the idea that football was just too soft.
Where's my smash mouth wide open football? It's gone.
Yes, the 2001 NFL, it's for children. The XFL, on the other hand, is for real football fans. Vince wanted the game to be much tougher and sexier, with less clothes on the cheerleaders and more opportunities for someone to get hit in the mouth, right down to the opening coin toss, which was replaced by a scramble for the ball at midfield. It was a fun idea, apart from the monsoon of injuries that followed from it, but with concussion worries breaking into the mainstream immediately following the league's dissolution, it's safe to say a lot of their ideas about making brutal hits more commonplace should probably be left in 2001. There were definitely a lot of interesting concepts that made their debut though. Players could choose to showcase their nicknames on the back of jerseys, and the use of Skycam and on-field microphones were something that was adopted by the NFL itself soon after. But beyond all of that showmanship that one comes to expect from a Vince McMahon enterprise, there was still football being played on the field. And oh boy, was it terrible. Not only was the league comprised of talent that couldn't cut it in the NFL, but the rushed timeframe of trying to put together an entire league within a year of its announcement meant that every process involved in getting a pro team game ready had to be compressed into the shortest possible time. It seemed as though everything was required to be in place before actual play on the field became a priority, from overpromising action movie style ads to the cheerleaders' outfits. When it came time to actually get teams ready to play, it was 30 days from opening kickoff, meaning guys off the street that already weren't playing football had to become a fully functioning team of world-class players within a month. The marketing and promotion created this idea of a league tougher and grittier than the already tough and gritty NFL, and that billing drew a huge first broadcast of over 50 million viewers for the first night. The games themselves, though, immediately removed that reputation, and the audience almost immediately dropped off a cliff after realizing what they were actually watching, which was, as Bob Costas put it, mediocre high school football combined with a tawdry strip club. Good lord. So how is this new incarnation of the XFL set to avoid this nightmare? Well, for starters, they've tagged Oliver Luck as CEO and commissioner of the league, a man who has significant experience as a football executive, spending time managing for NFL Europe, and most recently as VP of Regulatory Affairs for the NCAA. Vince McMahon is rightfully going to be hands-off of football operations, and Luck has come out to say that by far the #1 priority is putting a quality product on the field. Any guarantees of quality are just words, of course, at this point, and we'll have to see if the league can back it up. But with minicamps through December and training camps with joint practices throughout January to make time for adjustments, there's hope that day 1 on February 8th will see football that is hopefully on an entirely different plane from what was seen in the XFL's predecessor. It's not like the league is entirely without recognizable names either, with the likes of Cardale Jones, Aaron Murray, Connor Cook, and journeyman Josh Johnson headlining the league's quarterbacks, as well as a slew of other recognizable names that you can pause and take a look at if you'd like. They've also brought in experienced football minds at head coach positions like Mark Trestman, Kevin Gilbride, Pep Hamilton, and Bob Stoops, just to name a few. Another thing that sets the XFL apart is there's no current mandate to require 3 years out of high school for the players that enter the league like there is in the NFL, so an excellent bet for the league's future could be in the vein of offering money to top college ball players rather than the exploitation the NCAA provides, and giving them an alternate route to the National Football League as they meet that 3-year requirement. Since the league has to stand in the shadow of a catastrophic failure in their first incarnation, it makes sense that there's been a concerted effort to make distance between any ties the original has to its 2020 evolution. Fortunately, it's been said outright that the WWE-style skits and attempts to create drama that translated painfully to football will not have any part in the game. Neither will the attempt at capitalizing on the sex appeal of cheerleaders, which was supercharged once the XFL went into a tailspin, with promises of being shown the cheerleaders' locker room in a desperate attempt to keep people from switching the channel.
I want you to get in there, and I want you to go get me some ratings.
At any rate, no more cheap attempts at drama, no more cheerleaders at all. The emphasis is instead being placed on a more fan-friendly, high-paced version of the football everybody already knows and loves, with rule changes interlaced throughout to do just that. I'll link the full list down below in the description, but here are some of the most interesting ones in my opinion. The ever-boring kickoff is being made more exciting, with kickers standing at their own 25, but their coverage units lining up at the opposition's 35. This is intended to limit the amount of head-on, full-speed collisions, while simultaneously encouraging more runbacks, especially considering outright touchbacks like the ones you see nearly every kickoff in the NFL will result in the ball being placed at the 35-yard line. For offensive innovation, double forward passes are now allowed behind the line of scrimmage, simplifying the lateral system of a sideways or backwards trajectory that's required in the NFL. PATs are also being replaced with a system of 1, 2, and 3-point options from the 2, 5, and 10-yard lines respectively, allowing more opportunities for comebacks and unique scoring situations. Additionally, in an effort to speed up play, the clock will be continuously run outside of the 2-minute warning of each half, after which the clock will stop after every single play, giving 2-minute drills more potential to completely swing the tide. The play clock is also being cut from the NFL's standard 40 seconds down to 25 once the ball is spotted to keep up that same fast pace of play. And since we also now live in a world where fourth down conversions have quickly become the hill to die on between old guard and new guard, the XFL has made their rules clear in trying to encourage teams to take that risk and create more exciting moments for fans, as they've essentially banned coffin corner punts, with punts out of bounds being treated the same as a touchback and placed at the 35-yard line. Finally, overtime has also been changed, with a shootout format of 5 rounds of alternating one-play attempts from the 5-yard line being used to determine a game's winner, with sudden death used in the case of a tie after that, a system that's more akin to a shootout in hockey rather than a traditional overtime period. I'm somewhat on the fence about that last one until I see it in action, but these are changes that I personally am extremely excited to see implemented. It feels like these are genuine improvements rather than gimmicks in many areas, and cutting down on the runtime of over-bloated 3.5-hour NFL games that are loaded with commercial breaks at every stoppage will always be welcomed by fans. Viewers of the NFL have also commonly found fault with the terrible and inconsistent officiating that is completely opaque to the average viewer, so the XFL is going to try and combat that as well, with a specific referee used to ensure correct spot of the ball, a sky judge up above to overturn egregious calls on the spot, and even mics being placed onto referees to allow the audience to hear what's taking place inside all those secret society referee huddles that often control the outcome of games. Overall, they sound like changes that reimagine the game of football in a way that aims to benefit fans, just like Vince McMahon's announcement of the revitalized XFL said they would. The biggest lesson learned from the original XFL in 2001 was just because you can market something to perfection doesn't make it real, and it seems like they've definitely taken that to heart this time around, taking a more methodical and structured approach to their product rather than talking themselves straight into a corner. So that brings us to the million-dollar question. Is this actually going to work? Will this be the league that finally breaks that curse laid out by all the doomed attempts before it? I mean, it's not like the cards are in their favor. Maybe even in a best-case scenario, it could just turn out that there isn't as big of a market for spring football as everyone's tricked themselves into believing, and especially as a direct competitor of the NFL, it's just impossible to stand in that massive of a shadow. At least in terms of exposure though, the XFL and McMahon have gotten that right, signing a broadcast agreement that provides coverage of the league's games on Fox, ESPN, and ABC, at least giving an initial opportunity for the league to get its foot in the door. So the cards are out on the table. The XFL is back with a vengeance to modernize the sport in a way the NFL just hasn't needed to, bolstered by the necessary funding commitment and a commissioner who knows what needs to be done for the league to be accepted as a legitimate alternative. All there is left is to see if they can hold up to their word, because they know better than anyone else that fans will vanish if their expectations aren't met, especially in today's culture. One thing is still as clear as it was in 2001 though, and that's that football fans love football and the XFL is going to give it to them. Whether or not they crash to the ground like the league's original blimp or are able to stay up in the clouds for years to come, we'll just have to sit back and watch the show. In setting aside my own excitement at the fact we're getting more football, I can't say I'm convinced the XFL is going to be around long, given the near insurmountable wall that stands before them in trying to become a league that's able to profit as an alternative to what is already the #1 sports giant on earth. But hey, the determination that Vince McMahon seems to have in making this work really only gives him 2 possible pathways from here. Either the XFL 2.0 will change the landscape of football forever and make it into the year-round pastime that people have fantasized about, or it'll go down as his greatest failure. Again.